Hello everyone, today we'll continue with our third chapter of General Psychology, BAEG. This is from Bachelor of Arts English Honors, IGNOU. Laws of Organization, Gestalt Principles. So, in the early 20th century, three German psychologists, Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kofka, proposed new principles for explaining perception. Perception, that is how we see things and make sense of them, like explained in the previous video, called as Gestalt principle. So these new principles were called as Gestalt principle. According to these psychologists, the process of perception does not involve perceiving an array of stimuli as an object, but it involves our tendency to seek a form or pattern in it. Now we need to break it down to understand this properly. They're saying that according to these psychologists, the process of perception, that is the process of looking at things and understanding them in an own way, does not involve perceiving. Before we move on, let us first understand what perceiving is. This here I've written down the meaning this time. Perceive, to notice or realize something. So it says it does not involve noticing or realizing an array. What is an array? Array is a large collection of things. So let's just change there. Let's just substitute them. Okay, an array of stimuli as an object, but it involves our tendency to seek a form or pattern in it. So let's substitute these words for their meanings and try to understand it this way. This makes it easier. This is a method which makes any text that you can't understand very easy to understand. So you can try it at home if you like, or if you have difficulty in understanding any text, you can just use this method. The process of perception. So I would start writing from here. The process of perception. We will not substitute perception since we already know its meaning and it is very vast to write down. The process of perception does not involve perceiving an array of stimuli. Does not involve. Now here it comes. It's written does not involve perceiving an array of stimuli. Now we'll substitute these words. First we will substitute perceiving. So perceiving, to notice or realize something, does not involve noticing or realizing. And realizing what it's already given to us. Noticing or realizing an array of stimuli. So first write down the meaning of array. Noticing an array. What is array or realizing array? A large collection of things. A large collection of things. Now moving on. The next word is an array of stimuli. What is stimuli? Stimuli is something that causes activity. Collection of things. Collection of things of. It's written of something that causes activity. That is stimuli. Of something that causes activity of any sort. It could be of any sort. Means something that stimulates, that makes us do something, creates a kind of reaction in us. Stimuli as an object, but it involves our as an object, but it involves our tendency. So maybe some of you already know the meaning of tendency, but still, Tendency is our natural inclination to act in a particular way. So you can just write it like this. Our natural inclination to act to act in what way? It's already given. To act in what way? To seek a form. To seek a form or pattern in it. Or pattern in it. So this is basically the meaning of the core part of this Gestalt principle. Like here in the book, it's given as the process of perception does not involve perceiving an array of stimuli as an object, but it involves our tendency to seek a form of pattern in it. And the meaning of this is this. If you wish, you can just note it down somewhere. So what it's saying is that the process of perception does not involve perceiving. That means does not involve noticing or realizing, perceiving an array of stimuli. That is noticing or realizing a large collection of things that causes some activity. In fact, it's saying, in fact, what it means is it shows. But what it means is that our tendency, that is our natural inclination to seek a particular form or pattern in it. Let me simplify it even further. So what it's saying is that perception, so the basic meaning of perception, what we see it as perceiving an array of stimuli. Array of stimuli means, suppose there are this group of things, right? This is a particular group of things here. A particular group of things that causes some kind of stimuli, some kind of interaction inside us, right? Suppose this could be anything. Could be anything that catches our gaze. Let's say this was a pattern of particular plants. Okay, these are some particular kind of plants which are arranged in this kind of line. So how does they cause stimuli inside us? We see them and we notice, oh, these plants are of the same kind. So it causes some kind of reaction inside it that we notice this particular thing. So array of stimuli as an object. Now if you look at them, you might not notice. Actually, most times you don't notice because we have become so habitual of this. But if you think about it carefully, then you view all of this as one single object. You don't look at it like this is one individual plant, and there are 6 individual plants. You look at it as a kind of group. You say, yeah, it's a group of plants. You say it like this. You don't say there are 6 plants like this. If someone asks you what is this, then you say it's a group of plants. You wouldn't say these are 6 plants, right? Because your brain automatically saw them as a combined group. It automatically saw them as a group, right? But this is not perception. What perception is our natural inclination to see a kind of pattern in it. What would we see? We would see that the plants are of the same the plants are of the same species. This is our natural tendency. We would automatically see. Our brain would automatically process that these plants look kind of similar. What's similar about them? Then it would tell you that they are from the same species. Now let's say that there are these 5 video games. Okay, there are 5 video games. So you have these 5 video games. It's like you have these 5 CDs in your hand like this. So these are 5 video game CDs. And then when you look at it, what do you see? You see there are some CDs. It's a group of CDs. It's a bunch of CDs. You don't see there are 5 individual CDs. The first thing that comes to your brain is, yeah, it's a group of CDs. Or see, there are so many CDs. Okay. You look at it as a kind of single object. You group it under CDs. But what perception is looking at a kind of pattern inside it. You look at all these CDs individually and suddenly your brain gives you a signal. It says that, oh, these are all action games, or wow, these are all video games, or something like this, or these are all the latest games, or these are all the games that I didn't have. I wish I could play them. There's something kind of this. So it gives you a kind of pattern. It shows you, yeah, that there's this kind of pattern into it, right? So this is what perception is about. Perception is about your natural ability to see a pattern or a kind of form in a group of objects, in a bunch of objects. This is the simplest explanation of this. Let's suppose there was some certain group of objects, and but you notice a kind of pattern in them. You notice some kind of pattern in it, and it had to happen subconsciously. You don't think that what kind of pattern could be between these things. Your brain subconsciously tells you itself that this is the thing. Yeah, this is why. This is how they are similar, how they look same. This is how our brains helps us to put things in order. An unordered and orderly brain. This is the difference between it. Someone whose brain is more highly capable of telling the difference or finding out the pattern is a more orderly brain. Someone whose brain is not into it or is weaker in this form has an unorderly brain. Now suppose there were a bunch of people in front of you. Okay, so they would be wearing the same uniform. After you've seen, the first thought in your brain would be the first very subconscious thought, it can be said. The first thought in your brain would be that maybe they work in some kind of same building or they work in some same department. So this is perception. The second thought in your brain would be, it would collectively form them under a group, because when you think that they work in the same department, then it also means that they are a whole unit. It means your brain has already categorized as one whole unit. It has already categorized them into, yeah, this department. Okay, it's actually a bit difficult to understand, but if you take a few examples and try to notice what your brain thinks, I'm sure you'll be able to get it. To explain it verbally is a bit difficult, but you can do it physically, you can do it practically by yourself. Now moving on, the literal meaning of the word gestalt is form. It means in which form it is. Form or configuration. What is configuration? The way in which the parts of something or a group of things are arranged. So you would see how these things are arranged, right? Let's say there was a pack of cards and someone built a castle out of it. Then your first thought would be how this castle is arranged. Wow. And then your second thought would be to see it as a castle. You wouldn't see it as a pack of cards, as a group of cards just arranged in this manner. You would see it as a kind of castle. You forgot about that these are all individual cards just arranged in this way. Your subconscious thought inside your brain would be, wow, it's a castle. Right. The best example for this, I think, can be a real castle, a real building. When you look at a building, you think of it as a building. Inside your brain, deep inside, you know that it's a kind of building. It's one whole single unit. You don't look at it as, yeah, these are just several bricks clamped together. These are just hundreds and hundreds of bricks stuck together with cement and granite and stuff like this. You think of it that this is one single unit. This is one building. You don't take it as, no, this is just 1,000 or 2,000 bricks. If somebody asks you what is that, you will tell him it's a house. You won't tell him that this is an arrangement of hundreds of thousands of bricks, right? So this is how your brain subconsciously forms and categorizes things into a group. But perception is seeing the pattern in it. Perception is not categorizing it as one whole. Perception is seeing the pattern in which they are arranged. The basic premise of Gestalt psychology is that, so the word Gestalt means configuration. It means how a group of things are arranged. This is what Gestalt means. The basic premise, what is basic premise? Premise is something different, but when it combines with basic, its form changes. So basic premise means the form, what forms the basis of a theory of a plot. So the basis of a theory, what is the base of a theory? That's what basic premise means. Means the base of Gestalt psychology is that this is in inverted commas, whole is different from the sum of its parts. So whole means something that has been made whole, complete, is different from what it would be with the sum of its parts. Now let us take some numbers. 2 plus 2 plus 2. You all know 2 plus 2 would form 6, right? So 6, if taken whole, would be equal to the sum of its parts. So this does not satisfy the Gestalt theory. Now let's take a house. A house, right? A house is not a brick plus brick plus brick plus brick. Okay, this does not make a house. No matter how many bricks you combine, it will not make a house, never ever. Unless, what I mean by brick combining is adding one brick into another. So it would form a bigger brick. Add 2 more bricks into it, it would form an even bigger brick, but it will never make it into a house. So unless these bricks are stuck together with each other and uh, in a particular pattern, it will not form a house. So this is what Gestalt psychology says. Gestalt psychology says that whole is different. It means a complete thing is different from the sum of its parts, right? In this manner. So let's say that we are made of up of organs, but if you randomly arranged organs, would it make a human body? It will not. See, if you put lungs in if you put liver in the place of heart, and heart in the place of the urethra, then do you think it would make a human body? No. So but still the parts are the same. We are made up of the same parts, but still does not make the whole body even when combined. So how they are arranged is what matters. In what manner they are arranged. So this is what they're saying, that whole is different from the sum of its parts. Based on this basic premise, Gestalt psychologists proposed a number of principles or laws to explain the process of perceptual organization. What is perceptual organization? That is how we perceive smaller units of stimuli as a whole, how we see smaller units of activity causing agents as a whole, as one whole big thing. So when you look at a human being, you say that this is a human being. You don't say that this is a body made up of several organs, skeletons, and tissues, stuff, right? You don't say it. You say that this is a human body. For example, when I look at this quilt, what do I say? I say that, yeah, this is a quilt. I don't say that this is made up of hundreds or thousands of small sewn cotton buds or something like that, right? So basic thing is that I take it as a whole. When I look at my hand, I don't say that this is something that is made up of hundreds and made up of billions of cells together. I say that this is a hand, so I perceive it as a whole being. I don't see it as individual beings, individual parts, right? So this is what perception is, and according to Gestalt principle, how we perceive smaller units of stimuli as a whole, having a particular pattern. The second important part for Gestalt principle is that we must see a pattern in it, a particular pattern, right? For example, what should I give you as an example? Let's take this page. So when you look at it, you see that this is a page. You don't say that this is the combination of billions of atoms. You just say that this is a page, and then you suddenly see a pattern in it. What is the pattern? The pattern is that each line, the difference between each line is the same, right? This is the pattern that you see in this page. Or the second pattern, you can see that this is of a particular shape, right? This is a parallelogram, you can say. So this is what seeking a pattern and taking smaller units as a whole means. In the following section, let us discuss some important Gestalt laws of perceptual organization. But before doing so, can you find 13 faces in the following picture? So can you find 13 faces in it? I don't know. Let me try to see. Maybe one face is here. Second is third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th. I don't know. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, I think I could only find 11 faces in it, but I still wish you luck for all the 13 faces. Now moving on, figure ground relationship. Let us look at different laws of Gestalt's different laws of perception, means how differently we perceive things. So these are Gestalt's laws of perception. Can you see two different images in the picture given below? So in first, say you can see this here. This is forming a kind of nose, eyes, and it seems like two people are standing here, right? In the third, it seems like these are three columns. In the second way you see it, it feels like there are three columns, nothing else. If you focus, one of the images reflect chess pieces, while if you shift your focus, you can see two people standing face to face. This is nothing but the figure ground relationship. So this happens when you focus on one particular thing. When you try to focus in the gap, you see that there are two people standing against these columns. So the background is equally important. But when you look at the pieces, you look at the pieces against the black ground. You see that these are some chess pieces. So in the figure ground relationship, the background is important. Therefore, this principle states that we have a tendency. We have, what is tendency? We have a natural inclination to segregate. To segregate means to separate our world in the form of figure and ground. Now they will explain what figure and ground is. Figure is that part of stimuli which has our focus of the visual field, whereas the ground is background. So figure is nothing but the thing that we are focusing on through our eyes. Visual means through eyes, visually seeing. So figure is that part of the object. You can just replace stimuli with object. Stimuli is the same as object in almost all the places. So instead of reading it stimuli again and again, you can just count it as object, any object. So figure is that object on which we focus, right? And ground is the background against which we focus, right? Because if there is if there is complete blackness, then you can't see anything. If there is complete whiteness, you still can't see anything. You have to see some two opposing colors. So there must be one background and some other figure on which you are looking against it. So figure has a definite shape and is better remembered, whereas background is shapeless and has no limits. So background is infinite, shapeless, and it does not have any limit. But figure, it has a particular shape and it is remembered. It serves into our memory better than the background. That means we focus more on the figure rather than the background. This applies to many other areas too, not just looking at some picture. Two people or two pieces of chess, two queens and one bishop. When you focus on people, chess pieces disappears in the background, and when you focus on the chess pieces, people become background, right? So they can interchange. It's not like background is set, it is defined. It depends upon you. It depends upon what you focus as. This is the same as life. Like you have problems and you have happy times, but you focus on the problems. So the happy things, all the things that are worth living, they dissolve into the background. You don't focus on them, they don't grow, they dissolve into the background, they become meaningless. And what becomes meaningful, what becomes the focus of you is the problems. And if you start focusing on the good things, the better things, then the problems disappear into the background. The problems become the part of the background and go out of your memory. They are meaningless now. What's meaningful is the happy parts, the good parts of your life. Law of proximity. The law of proximity states that in order to perceive objects meaningful, objects which are closer to each other are perceived by us belonging to one group. So they are saying that in order to see objects as something meaningful, objects which are closer to each other, we see objects that are closer to each other belonging to one group. Now in this case, see, when you first look at it, what do you see? You see that this is one group, like this is one group. And what do you see this as? This is as three different groups, right? But let me tell you, the gap between these two and the gap between these two is almost the same. Almost the same, not exactly the same. But what matters is that you, no matter how you try, you aren't able to see all of these individually. You always perceive them as a kind of groups. You see that this is a kind of group, this is also kind of group. You cannot look at them, this is one individual circle, individual circle, all of these are individual circles. No matter how hard you try, you always end up seeing them as a kind of square, as a kind of group. And same goes in this place. Why? Because they are closer to each other. Now why do you see these two as two different groups? You could have seen all of this as one single object, right? As one single group, because these are closer to each other than these are. In the same case, these in this manner, these two circles are closer to each other than these group of circles. So the circles which are closer to each other form one group in your mind, and the circles who are farther from each other form another group in your mind. Okay, they are separated out. This is the law of proximity. Let me explain it to you here. So suppose I draw a box here, and then I draw a box here, I draw a box here, and in this same manner I draw a box here, I draw a box here and box here, right? And then I draw one box here, one box here, one box here, and one box here. Now what do you see this as? Do you see that this is one complete picture? You don't write. You form two pictures, like this is one part of the picture and then this is the other part of the picture, right? Like the writer is trying to show us two different kind of pictures. You don't say that this must be a whole, this one must be a one single picture. This is what thinking out of the box means. You look at things just as they are. The closer they are each other, you form them as a group. The separate farther they are each other, you form them as a part of something else. So you can't look out of the box. You involve, you get inside the box and you become a part of it. You cannot come out of it and see this as a whole, right? So this was the law of proximity. Our brain tends to group large elements as one to make us interpret more easily. So our brain groups larger elements as one single thing so that we can interpret things more easily. Now, law of similarity. What is the law of similarity? The principle states that stimuli similar to each other are grouped together. For instance, in figure 3.1, we tend to group circles based on its colors. In real life also, we use this principle extensively. For example, during cricket match, we tend to group players based on the color of their jersey. So law of similarity means that we tend to group things. We tend to group things on based on their colors. So in this picture, you can clearly see that we have in our brain we already see the white dots together and the black dots together. We don't see it like one white dot, one black dot. If you really focus on how you think seeing things, if you really try to look into your brain and see how it perceives things, you will see that it automatically forms the group of white balls as one single group, the group of black balls as one different group. It doesn't make them a part of the same group. In the same sense, in crude human sense, you can say that this is what leads to apartheid. So in the African countries, the American countries, the whites form one group, the blacks form one group. So the whites see themselves as part of one white group and the blacks see themselves as a part of the one black group, right? This is due to the Gestalt's law of similarity. This is the law of continuity or good continuation. The law of continuity refers to a tendency to perceive figures in continuation rather than in parts. So if you look at this picture, you see it as a kind of picture that goes from here to here. You don't see this like these are just some randomly arranged circles. These are some individual circles which are arranged in this way. You look at this as one whole. You look at it as a kind of S or as a kind of pattern, right? You just cannot make your brain ignore the pattern and see them as individual objects. No matter how hard you try, you always see this as a kind of pattern that is moving into this side. In fact, these are nothing but just randomly arranged balls which seem to make this kind of pattern. But you are looking at them as if they are moving continuously or as if they are made continuously into this kind of pattern. This principle is exhibited more in the perception of line, right? You are taking this more as a line. In fact, if you focus more deeply, you may even ignore the blank space completely and take it as one complete line. As can be seen in figure 3.6, we generally perceive it as a line instead of separate circles. Now, the law of closure. Following its name, this law should not be confused with the law of proximity. So, the law of proximity and the law of closure are different things. This law states that we have a tendency to perceive objects as closed shapes even when with some missing parts. So, you can clearly see that this is not a panda. If you look at it, so this is not a panda, okay? Because to make it a panda, you would have to circle this part also. You would have to like trace it here and then cover it, finish it up. So that's how it would make a panda. But still, your brain could already form a line here, right? So this is just kind of a shape. This is just a kind of shape which hasn't even been completed. It has been left out. But your brain can already see this as a complete picture. Your brain is already converting it, already making it into a complete picture. It's differentiating it from the background just because it has seen similar things. It has seen similar things from the past, so it automatically converts this thing into one from its experience. Law of common fate. Law of common fate is also very important. The law of closure is also why people fail to think out of the box. Law of common fate. This principle states that stimuli, objects moving in similar directions, are perceived as belonging to same group. Okay, so objects moving in similar direction are perceived as forming one group. So suppose that this is a road. This is a road, and here the road goes into several different directions, right? But the people moving on this road, they are all going in this direction. So all of them will be taken as what? All of them will be taken as going in this as taken as a group that is going in this direction. No matter if they have to change their directions completely after reaching this point, but until here to here, they will be taken as a group. Even if they do not know each other, if they haven't seen each other ever before, even if they belong to different species, we will always categorize them as similar people or as a group of people. The word pragnanz, so the law of pragnanz. The word pragnanz is German in origin, meaning good figure. This principle is also called as law of good figures. According to this principle, out of all possible ways of grouping stimuli or objects, we tend to group objects in the simplest and stable shape. Thus, we can state that simpler forms are more quickly perceived by us. So, in a group of objects which are randomly arranged, they can form several kinds of patterns, but the only ones we see would be the simplest patterns, the simplest and most basic patterns, right? So let's say that sometimes we see pictures which have different, which means different kinds of things to people, right? Sometimes there are pictures which look different to some other people and different to some other people, so the people according to themselves interpret the picture in the most simplest shape, thus following the law of pragnanz. So according to the law of pragnanz, we arrange figures into the simplest shape or pattern that is according to us. Now next would be theories of learning. We would cover theories of learning in the next chapter, as this video is already too long. Okay, see you in the next video.